The entire western region of Crimea trembled, not because of an earthquake, not because of a tsunami, but because of a firestorm, carried by kamikaze UAVs, diving straight toward Russia's strategic military installations. In less than 3 hours, over 200 Ukrainian suicide drones struck multiple targets at the Saki forward airbase near Novofedorivka, completely overturning the balance of power at one of the most heavily fortified zones on the Crimean Peninsula. Yet this assault didn't begin with explosions. It began with the shadow of a PD-2 reconnaissance drone silently gliding through the night sky. The PD-2 had quietly locked onto the entire airbase complex, monitoring every movement, from fighter jet formations and helicopter pads to early warning radar systems and air defense hotspots. The target coordinates were transmitted directly to HUR's command center. A green light flashed on, and now it was time for the kamikaze swarm to strike. The objective Saki military airbase, located in Novofedorivka, home to Russia's primary combat aircraft, Su-30SM, Su-24M, Mi-8 and Ka-52 helicopters, along with multi-layered radar systems guarding the western Crimean airspace. Once the sword pointed toward the Black Sea. Now, before the coming storm of drones, a $900 million arsenal was about to turn into a blazing ruin. 1:30 a.m., November 2nd, 2025. The ground was preparing to shake. Only 15.5 miles remained before 200 Ukrainian kamikaze drones reached the outer edge of the Saki forward airfield, one of the most critical nodes in Russia's Crimean military network. One by one, they skimmed the terrain like daggers about to pierce a vital artery. 75 miles away, deep in the forests of Kherson, a 2018 Sprinter 313 van was expertly camouflaged under dense foliage. Inside the van were not soldiers, but the electronic warfare team of Ukraine's Military Intelligence Directorate, typing the final lines of code into their control system. The targeting display was locked, the Saki forward airbase, fighter jets parked along the runway, ammunition depots, fuel tanks, spare part warehouses, all boxed neatly inside red targeting grids. Coordinates updated. Each kamikaze UAV now awaited the final command. Their position remained undiscovered, but the drones were about to enter the Russian air defense kill zone. 9 miles to the southeast, an S-400 battalion positioned in open terrain had just caught the first radar reflections from low-flying objects skimming the edge of its detection range. Those were precisely the drones launched nearly 2 hours earlier, flying at an altitude of only 32 feet, weaving through villages, hugging hills and valleys, evading all medium-range radars and especially the layers of electronic warfare coverage. But at a range of 6.2 miles, the advantage of the Earth's curvature and low altitude would cease to matter. Natural camouflage ended here. Russia's air defenses began to react. Inside the command van, the air grew heavy. A crew member spoke up, requesting authorization to fire. Seconds later, from HUR headquarters, an encrypted high-level military signal was sent. The indicator light turned green. The swarm of drones seemed to understand the order, entering their final dive, ready to annihilate everything within the target zone. But once the engagement order was executed, the drones didn't attack as one unified spearhead. Instead, 70 UAVs were programmed to intentionally break away from the main formation, veering east, outside the primary target area. They carried no heavy warheads, aimed at neither aircraft nor fuel depots. Their sole mission to jam, to provoke, to force Russian air defenses to reveal themselves. In less than 2 minutes after the 70 drones split off, Russian radar screens lit up like fireworks. Inside the S-400 battalion, alarm sirens began to howl. From the northeast, dozens of low-flying targets appeared simultaneously, cruising at 100 miles per hour, below 49 feet, skimming past villages, orchards, and open fields. The returned signals scattered and distorted through the terrain, exactly like a real air raid. A commanding officer quickly activated the Valday 117ZH6 AESA radar, Russia's modern low-altitude UAV detection system. Full scan mode engaged. Transmission power pushed to maximum. Scan rate doubled. The entire Valday array began emitting continuous high-energy pulses across C and X bands, sweeping every direction to lock onto the decoy swarm. In under 30 seconds, Valday's radar waves covered a 25-mile radius. But that was a fatal mistake. Ukrainian electronic intelligence drones had intercepted the Valday's radar emission, a strong, focused, cyclic signal impossible to confuse with anything else. Transmission frequency 9.1 GHz, sweep range 120 degrees left to right, pulse interval 2.5 microseconds. Every parameter matched the Valday's electronic signature. Valday online, coordinates exposed. The message flashed on the operator's screens. In less than 6 seconds, the ELINT system triangulated the exact location of the active Russian radar. The data appeared on the control interface, bearing, range, angular deviation, all computed in real time. There was no doubt now. Valday, the primary eye guarding Saki's eastern flank, had just walked straight into the trap. Coordinates were instantly relayed to the main kamikaze UAV strike group. The AN-196 drone, codenamed Alpha 1, the lead navigation UAV, immediately redirected the secondary strike formation. There was no doubt left. The last operational eye of Saki's air defense had exposed itself to the hunters. Russian air defenses began to react. The intercept command was issued instantly. A Panzer S-1 vehicle immediately rotated its turret, locked onto a target, and launched 2 short-range 57 E-6 interceptor missiles. Farther away, a Buk M2 system also joined the battle, firing a salvo of 9 M317 missiles into the sky. Over the eastern horizon, bursts of intercept fire began to bloom. Sharp explosions echoed, flashes tearing through the night like deadly fireworks. Some decoy drones were shredded. Others evaded and kept harassing. But what Ukraine was truly waiting for wasn't those explosions. Instantly, the Thanatos Group kamikaze unit, 10 AN-196 Lyuchi drones armed with HE-1 penetrator warheads, diverted from their initial attack vector. The Valday 117Z H-6RLKMC radar was still screaming. Its high-frequency radar pulses swept in all directions, power output undiminished. With every passing second, it revealed its exact location with greater precision. Beneath the swarm of decoys, 10 AN-196 Lyuchi suicide drones had completed their final approach. Valday never saw them coming. That radar wasn't designed to defend itself. It was only the eye. And when the eye is deceived, the entire body goes blind. The lead drone, codenamed Lyuti-4A, accelerated, its engine slicing through the low-altitude air. It veered 8 degrees off the main axis, nose pointed directly at the ESA radar dome of Valday, the source of its transmission. At that moment, a Russian soldier in an auxiliary radar post saw a dark shadow streak past. "That's no migratory bird, it's an attack drone! Save yourself!" Inside the command cabin, the monitor flashed white, then went dark. The Lyuti-4A drone slammed straight into the primary transmission module. The 22-pound HEI warhead detonated in a penetrating incendiary fragmentation chain reaction. Flames burst skyward, ripping through the radar station. The shockwave tore the antenna from its base, shattered the support frame, and blasted superheated fragments through the control cabin. In under 6 seconds, the entire Valday RLKMC radar complex was completely neutralized. It could no longer transmit. It could no longer restart. The eye of the S-400 system had been gouged out. For Ukraine, the air defense door had just been blown wide open. A panicked Russian officer slammed his hand onto the control board, shouting orders to activate the backup 1L125 Nebo SV radar. But it was already too late. The main power supply was gone. The auxiliary transmitter had been hit by a UAV 3 minutes earlier. The radar crew tried to start the backup diesel generator, but the signal blinked for only 12 seconds before dying out. The reserve eye never had a chance to open. At that very moment, the skies west of the airbase began to tremble. The remaining 130 kamikaze drones, previously loitering in standby mode, accelerated in unison, switching to their final attack phase. They needed no GPS guidance. The INS had preloaded coordinates, accurate to within a meter. Operation Stormfall had begun. The drone formation split into 4 assault groups attacking simultaneously. 30 drones dove in from the north, the direction of the airfield's main wind corridor. The target, the active runway, where a pair of Su-30 SMS had just landed minutes earlier. On the concrete apron, at least 6 Su-30 SMS and 4 Su-24 MS were lined up, some still being refueled. The lead drone plunged into the fuselage of the first Su-30 SM, piercing the cockpit from the left side. The explosive charge ignited in the auxiliary fuel bay, forming a 98-foot fireball. The blast pressure ripped off the canopy above and destroyed a nearby navigation radar post. The HEI explosion gouged a crater 4 feet deep and 13 feet wide, enough to make any aircraft incapable of takeoff. The remaining 9 drones struck along the runway axis, each impact spaced 260 feet apart, causing chain detonations that fractured the reinforced concrete. The main runway was completely disabled. 3 more drones hit diagonally, striking the wings, engines, and tails of 2 Su-24s parked side by side. One jet erupted from the rear, rolling onto its side. The blast detonated its onboard KH-25 missile modules, creating a secondary explosion that engulfed the entire apron. The 7th drone slammed between 2 Su-30 SMS parked close together. The HEI penetrator tore through both fuselages, scattering hundreds of metal fragments. The flames spread too quickly. No one had time to react. 12 more drones looped southwest, where 6 Mi-8 AMTH helicopters and 2 K-52s sat beside the hangar wall. The first strike hit the main rotor shaft of the nearest Mi-8. The rotor blades were severed, spinning off like giant knives that tore through the concrete wall behind. Another drone dove into the nose of a Ka-52 right at its target acquisition radar cluster. The explosion obliterated the sensors, turning the helicopter into a grounded wreck. 40 drones swept westward, into hangars sheltering Su-24s, MiG-29s, and Mi-8s parked side by side. Their penetrator incendiary warheads punched through the domed roofs, igniting fuel and triggering rocket launch systems inside. In under 30 seconds, at least 7 aircraft were incinerated, 3 helicopters exploded, their landing gears blown apart like scraps of molten steel, the remaining airframes glowing red in a sea of fire. 25 drones stormed the southern sector, targeting the Airbase's fuel and ammunition depots. The first 2 blasted open the perimeter wall, clearing the way for the swarm to dive into the storage tanks. 1 drone struck the main fuel reservoir, triggering the largest secondary explosion of the night. A 195-foot column of fire rose into the air, burning fiercely for more than 8 minutes. The heat spread toward the ammunition warehouses, where another drone struck a container of S-13 rockets, setting off a chain reaction that spanned hundreds of meters. 35 drones advanced along the eastern axis, aiming for the Airbase's forward command post, where ground control cabins, communication antennas, and signal towers stood. Within 10 seconds of approach, 4 drones slammed directly into the command center roof. The entire building collapsed in a deafening blast. All radio links between Saki Air Base and the Black Sea Fleet's Central Command were severed completely. The entire Saki Air Base was now an inferno. Flames spread from the parking apron to the hangars. Ammunition detonated intermittently. Aircraft struck by blasts toppled and burned down to skeletal frames. Columns of black smoke rose hundreds of meters high, visible even from the distant coast of Yevpatoria. Within 9 minutes, the entire forward air detachment stationed at the Saki Forward Air Base, fighters, strike aircraft, and attack helicopters, had been almost completely wiped out.